Billy Luna.
Suge is basically saying that Puffy started off not being into deviant kinds of S behavior. Suge implies that major record executives are into this kind of thing that Puffy has been accused of doing. And that's where Puffy learned it from, when he was exploited by these executives when he was trying to break in. Then Suge alleges that Puffy repeated that behavior with Usher and did something to him. And then Usher repeated that bad behavior with Justin Bieber. Suge implies that Berry Gordy, quote unquote, touched on Michael Jackson, and that Quincy Jones, quote unquote, touched on Michael Jackson. Suge alleges that Michael Jackson learned this behavior and then repeated it with the boys, young boys that Michael victimized. Suge accuses Puffy of being a rat, an informant for the FBI.
Please subscribe to the Billy Luna channel and like the video. Thank you.
Patraick Bet-David had an interview with Suge Knight from prison. There are interesting parts of this interview, and then there's parts that are not that interesting. There's a lot of filler in this interview and stuff that is not that important. I will give you just the juiciest parts. I'll curate the interview for you and give you my commentary and add more context about their conversation and explain the people whom Suge throws under the bus. From Diddy to Justin Bieber, from Berry Gordy to Michael Jackson, from Clive Davis to Jimmy Iovine. Don't waste your precious time. It's better to watch my version of the interview than to watch the actual interview. Patraick Bet-David opens up by asking Suge if he saw the Cat Williams interview on Shannon Sharpe's show Club Shay Shay. Suge says that Cat Williams is like family to Suge. Patraick Bet-David then brings up the topic of Puffy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs, and his legal problems. Before I tell you what Suge accused Puffy of, I'll give you a little background. Sean Diddy Combs, a rapper and music mogul credited with helping launch the careers of some of the biggest stars in recent years, is now facing multiple civil suits accusing him of S trafficking, S abuse, and the R word. Combs, formerly known as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, and a host of other names, has undergone a myriad of reinventions since the start of his career. Federal agents with U.S. Homeland Security raided two of the rapper's houses in Los Angeles and Miami on March 25th, as he faces a string of varying accusations. Combs, 54, has strongly denied all of the allegations against him. His attorneys have branded the lawsuits and their accusations as money grabs, baseless, or sickening. The entertainer has not been formally charged or accused by federal prosecutors of any crime. The new lawsuits come months after Combs' former partner, Cassandra Cassie Ventura, filed a lawsuit against him in November. She accused him of R-wording her in 2018, beating her, demanding she carry a firearm to make her uncomfortable and demonstrate how dangerous he is, and forcing her into unwanted S encounters with male S workers. The slew of allegations and lawsuits against Combs dates back as far as the 1990s, when he founded his own record label, Bad Boy Records. They're talking about Puffy, and Suge makes a lame joke that he's not going to say that he's never had a threesome, but that he's not had a threesome with other guys. Suge accuses Puffy of being a rat, an informant for the FBI. Suge Knight then implies that they're moving slower with Puffy's case because of Puffy's links to powerful people. Suge is basically saying that Puffy started off not being into deviant kinds of S behavior, but he must have learned it from some men in the industry who exploited him to allow him to get into the music industry. Then Suge alleges that Puffy repeated that behavior with Usher and did something to him, and then Usher repeated that bad behavior with Justin Bieber. Suge implies that major record executives are into this kind of thing that Puffy has been accused of doing, and that's where Puffy learned it from, when he was exploited by these executives when he was trying to break in. Suge then throws out the name of Clive Davis. Let me first tell you a little bit about Clive Davis. Clive Davis is a music industry legend. Davis is the man who discovered or signed countless multi-platinum recording artists, including Whitney Houston, Bruce Springsteen, and Alicia Keys. In his memoir, The Soundtrack of My Life, Davis, who's been married and divorced twice, wrote that he had been involved in 2 monogamous relationships with men over the past 20 years. Davis writes that his first S encounter with a man was during the era of Studio 54 in the late 70s. Now, Being gay is totally different than the things that Suge Knight is implying here. And Suge also mentions Jimmy Iovine. So we're going to get back to this. Suge is accusing Clive Davis of this kind of bad behavior, and he accuses others. So we're going to get back to this. Suge also mentions Jimmy Iovine. Let me just give you a little bit more information about Jimmy. Jimmy Iovine, co-founder of Interscope Records and the headphone brand Beats. Iovine is a mentor to Dr. Dre, numerous other moguls. Iovine had a lawsuit filed against him. The New York court documents contain allegations that the women suffered as a result of being abused, forcibly touched, and subjected to harassment and retaliation. Along with Jimmy Iovine, Suge also mentions Doug Morris. Doug Morris, the only executive to have held a chief position at each of the three major music groups, Warner Music Group, Universal Music Group, and Sony Music, joined the board in 2007 when he was chairman and CEO of Vivendi's UMG. He's basically a bigwig in music. He's huge. Suge speaks in a very meandering type of way. He's not very clear, so you're lucky that I'm just going to kind of break it all down for you here. Suge then goes on to get back to the fact that Puffy is an informant for the government, a rat, and that Puffy had inside information about the bus coming because of his cooperation with the government previously. Suge says that Diddy is also in danger because he knows secrets about extraordinarily powerful people. This feels like Suge is alluding to that guy with the young girls who had the island and his death. You all know who I'm talking about. Suge really babbles on about unrelated and uninteresting stuff. And to be honest, Patraick Bet-David doesn't really rein him in that much and just kind of listens to it. Seems like what Suge does a lot with a lot of the questions is he really doesn't answer them. And he just kind of meanders back to kind of talking about how great he is, how great a businessman he is, how much of a maverick he is, etc. This kind of thing. Kind of boring, actually. So Suge says that Puffy comes from bootleggers, he alleges. Suge says that when Puffy got his big deal with Ciroc Vodka, Puffy wanted to renegotiate the deal. And when the big wigs that he was dealing with weren't into it, Suge says that Puffy accused them of being racist. Suge said that is what upset the powers that be, and that is now coming back to haunt Puffy, and that's basically why they're after him. So then Suge goes on to basically say you have the Illuminati and you have the Masons. Suge says the Masons believe in God and the Illuminati believe in the devil. This almost sounds a little bit like some of the stuff that Cat Williams was saying on his Club Shay Shay thing. Suge said there's a lot of great talent in this world that can't break in because of the Illuminati. Suge accused Cash Money Records and No Limit Records as having been being started with drug money. And Suge points out that they even brag about it. Suge goes on to say that his company, Death Row Records, was not started with drug money. I'm not so sure about this one, Suge. Most people believe that former drug kingpin Michael Harry O. Harris invested in and helped found Death Row Records, the label behind music legends Dr. Dre, Tupac Shakur, and Snoop Dogg. The former drug kingpin helped run Death Row, the multi-million-dollar rap empire, from his prison cell after founding the parent company for Death Row Records with a $1.5 million investment. Suge goes on to say that there's a lot of fake stories about Tupac by somebody who may have worked security or washed his car and didn't really know Tupac. Suge then goes on to say that there are music executives that have more security than Taylor Swift. I've got to be honest, this interview really lacks focus and is kind of all over the place. Suge goes on to say that the legendary founder of Motown Records, Berry Gordy, quote unquote, played both sides of the fence and exploited Michael Jackson. Suge alleges that Michael Jackson learned this behavior and then repeated it with the young boys that Michael victimized. Berry Gordy was the founder of Motown Records, a label pivotal to American music. Motown launched the careers of artists like the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, and Stevie Wonder, the Temptations, the Jackson 5. Gordy's innovative approach to artist development broke racial barriers in the industry. He also produced successful films like Lady Sings the Blues and The Wiz, which starred Michael Jackson. Suge implies that Berry Gordy, quote unquote, touched on Michael Jackson, and that Quincy Jones, quote unquote, touched on Michael Jackson. Suge says that Michael's father, Joe, who is actually known to have beaten Michael, was a Jehovah's Witness and wouldn't give Michael toys. So Suge says that Motown legend Berry Gordy lured Michael in with toys and then later basically exploited him and, as Suge would say, touched on him. Suge ties it together and basically implies that Clive Davis victimized Puffy. That's where Puffy learned the behavior, and then Puffy repeated the behavior and victimized others. Suge thinks that Puffy is going to be the sacrificial lamb. Okay, this is just part one of my reaction to this and breakdown. If you dig it, like, subscribe, share, blah, blah, blah. Check out my other videos on the end screen and stay tuned for part two. Ciao.
Billy Luna.
Please subscribe to the Billy Luna channel and like the video. Thank you.